This I've had percolating for days. And I've gone over this list, and I've done this list in my head a few times. Um, Trying to measure the best goaltending tandem in the NHL. And trying to make sure I'm doing a video that's not the same day the NHL did a video. The NHL Network, because I don't like doing that. I like to produce my content without thinking, oh, what did they do today? So, trying to handicap all 31, I've had to use a stat which some people don't like, which is save percentage. But I'm going to go through this. I'm going to discuss this. This is going to be a video that I think is going to be 2 parts, hopefully not 3. But I want to explain, so I'm going to do my best to explain as I'm doing these, and to make sure that as I'm putting the numbers down, it's not going to be a confusing matter. The numbers I'm going to put underneath of each team as I go through, with the exception of, well, no, there's still a spot under Winnipeg where I can do it. There's a few things that will affect my ranking of a goaltender and goaltending tandems. Is the strength of the backup, the health of the starter in general, and just that general feel I have of trust in the goalies in question. How much do I trust said goalies to come out and perform well this season is an important question to me. So, also what I've done is I've put an asterisk next to goaltenders who played less than 10 games this past season, or no, 10 or less games this past season, because I think that sometimes skews their statistics a little bit, sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better, but I still think it skews them. So that being said, I'm going to go from 31st rated goaltending tandem to first. So, as long as that's all understood, it's very basic. Again, I've gone over this list at least 4 times, and I made very, very few changes in this last one. I'm like, okay, I'm confident. I'm happy with where these have ended up. Number 31. Carolina Hurricanes, Scott Darling and Peter Mrazek. Mrazek had a 902 for the season. Darling had an 888. Darling was not, for Carolina, what he was supposed to be. And I think that most Carolina fans will say, well, he's going to have a better season. And I get it, but I can't go based on, well, he'll have a better season and rate him ahead of other goaltenders when he hasn't done it yet. And Mrazek, he could bounce back. The problem was he was supposed to bounce back this year, and then he was supposed to bounce back in Philly. And he had a good start in Philly, and then it just kind of stopped. So for me, that's the tandem that makes me the most nervous going into this season. Number 30, I'm sticking close to home for this one. Markstrom and Nilsson in Vancouver. And I went back and forth on which one of these to have at 31. Markstrom, I've had people say, Markstrom's a good goaltender. Yes. But I don't think he's an NHL caliber starter. And Nilsson had a rough time of it. He ended up with a 901. Now, what helped him in the eyes of many is that he also then had an excellent world championship after, and I'm glad he did, and I hope it leads over into something this season. But again, it's a tandem that makes me nervous. And I know Demko's waiting in the AHL. I know Demko could come in and end up getting a job, but I can only go based on who the tandems are right now. Nilsson's still a Canuck. Markstrom's still a Canuck. So for right now, I have to grade it based on who's currently Canuck goaltenders. Number 29. Craig Anderson tends to have good years followed by bad years. This was a bad year for him, 898. Mike Condon, 902. I don't know that at the age Anderson's at, we can expect him to have a big bounce back year. I don't. He could. Absolutely, yes. Anderson could have a big bounce back year, 925 save percentage, drags Ottawa into the playoffs. But again, banking on a bounce back by a goaltender means that there's no point in having this list. Anderson had a rough year. Condon didn't have a great year either. It was just the whole season for Ottawa was kind of a write-off after the first 15 games. First 15 games they looked pretty good, and then it just sort of fell apart from there. And goaltending did play its role. Number 28. I know there's people who are going to be like, well, you should have taken them off at 31. I would have, except I like Leonard more than I think a lot of people do. Robin Leonard took a lot of flack for Buffalo's misfortunes, but if you look at it, his numbers were better than Johnson's. They weren't as good as Ullmark's, but honestly, Ullmark didn't play that many games. So while Ullmark may have looked better than Leonard, I still think Robin Leonard's a good, solid goaltender. He'll be an upgrade from Greiss. Greiss is due for a bounce back as well. But I think Leonard, I'm more comfortable with as a starter than Anderson, Markstrom, or either Mrazek or Darling right now. That's why I have the Islanders at 28. 27, Buffalo. Ullmark and Hutton. I know. Buffalo fans won't like it. And I get it. Hutton had an amazing save percentage last year of .931 in 32 games. 40 games. But he's never been a starter in the NHL. And the number that he put up this past season, as impressive as it is, it's also not really like his career average. So you've got to think he's going to come back to earth a bit. And he won't be playing behind the St. Louis Blues defense. Now, the St. Louis Blues missed the playoffs, but defense is not their problem. Ullmark, never been an NHL goaltender for a full season as a starter either. So, again, while Ullmark had a .935 in limited appearances, and I know Buffalo fans are excited, I look more at Hutton and I say, okay, I don't know that either of these guys right now are ones that I would say, bona fide starter, here we go. Could they turn out that way? Yes, but for right now, that's where I have them ranked. 26th. You know what surprises me about Philly is that Neuwirth had a .915 save percentage. Michael Neuwirth is a guy that I actually really like a lot. But he's very inconsistent. And Elliott was looking for a bounce-back year after he was dispatched by Calgary, and early on it looked like maybe, and then it didn't work out for him. So, and that's, and then injuries take place, Mrazek gets brought in, doesn't get a whole lot better. Detroit looks brilliant for getting anything for Mrazek at that point. But Elliott and Neuwirth, both of them looking for bounce-backs, and I think we're getting to the point with Elliott where there's been a lot of bounce-backs they're looking for from him. So again, I have them at 26. 25, Jimmy Howard, Jonathan Bernier in Detroit. Hopefully I'm not losing anybody at this point. Howard and Bernier. Howard had a .910 save percentage, which was good considering Detroit wasn't very good in front of him. I think he's capable of a .920. I know he was good the year before. Bernier comes in with middling average numbers from Colorado, but he had a good streak there in Colorado as well. He can play. He's not a bad goaltender. And again, I don't have Detroit as one of the best tandems, but honestly, this one I'm okay with Howard as a starter. If Bernier's the starter, it makes me a little more nervous if I'm a Detroit fan. But in general, that one's okay. 24, Smith and Riddick. I'm giving Riddick the backup job here instead of Gillies because I think it'll be Riddick anyways. Riddick had the .904, Smith had the .916. Can Smith stay healthy? If Smith stays healthy, this team is better than 24 in goal. But if he can't, it could be a long year. The Flames are a team that have struggled. I did a parody video tonight where I discussed the struggles of the Flames as part of it. And Smith was brought in to kind of help them over that hump, and it didn't really happen. So there's some pressure on Smith this year to get her done. 23. I would have Chicago higher up if Crawford was healthy. We don't know where Crawford's at right now. So that .929 save percentage, which ironically there was an article in the Hockey News last fall, which basically said Crawford's good, but he's not great. He gets really good numbers because he plays behind that Chicago defense. And if he wasn't behind the Chicago defense, his numbers would stink. So he gets hurt. Forsberg goes in. His numbers aren't very good. And from there, Chicago's season goes off the rails, proving that Crawford was better than any credit he was given by writers. If Crawford's healthy, they're better than 23. But because Crawford there's still some debate about how healthy he is. If they need to go to Ward for any extended period as a starter, that could be a problem. 22. Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers have Talbot, Montoya, and Koskinen. Koskinen, it's his job as backup based on the money. I put Montoya on the board because he did post an .893 save percentage, and people ask about him. And they say, well, what about Montoya? Montoya's .893 save percentage, he didn't inspire confidence, is part of the reason why Koskinen was brought in. That and the fact that Talbot had a .908 save percentage and really had a poor season by any standard. This was not the kind of season that they wanted from Talbot. But there's the first 10, and that's where I will end this video. But we'll discuss another 10 in the next video.